Ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon and welcome to another edition of Toxic Happy Hour, where we have the best chat in the space and we are toxic towards scams that delay the adoption of global sound money. Today, unfortunately, Pubby cannot join us. He's busy these days, likely also entire next week. And I met Alice Lacrosse earlier today on Adam Meister's show. He always has these great Friday panels, which is makes me wonder why he invites me on it. But I met Alice Lacrosse. Seemed like a good guy. I wanted to do Toxic Happy Hour because I mean, Pubby and I used to do this alone, but I'm starting to get addicted. I need my dose of Toxic Happy Hour. Alice Lacrosse, welcome to the show. And what are you drinking? And tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thanks, great to be here. Well, I'm actually eating. This is culturally a little more in your neck of the woods. This is Siggy's Icelandic yogurt.
Oh,
It's the high-fat, high-protein, low-sugar yogurt. So little Scandinavian coincidence here. That wasn't really the plan, but and I am drinking some coffee. That's about it. So it's a little early in the day for me. Got a 15-month-old running around, so not time to get hammered at the moment.
right. Well, where are you located?
I am currently in Texas.
Okay.
Yeah, I was on the West Coast before this until a few months ago, and it just seemed like the writing was on the wall that it was time to get out of there and come to Texas.
Yeah. No, I get that. But that is early for you. It's Friday. And what is it? 2
Yeah,
p.m., 3 p.m.?
it's 3:20 right now. So
Yeah. All
yeah,
right. I will take one for the team. Not a problem. We don't have Pub here today. I'll have to carry that. I heard your name many times, and but don't know too much about you apart from the fact that you're a Marty Benz Lacrosse coach. Tell us what you do in Bitcoin and what you're up to in general.
yeah. Well, what I do in Bitcoin is basically what you see at the moment. I am, I'm basically a pleb who was obsessed with Bitcoin and went down that road. I had another account before Al, but no one really cared about it. Where I tried to say serious things for a while, didn't catch much attention. Then one night in what was it, November of 2019, Marty was doing TFTC, and he was talking about how some people had written in when they'd heard the about the Al's Lacrosse charity, and they had looked it up to, they'd Googled it to see what it was all about, and they weren't finding it. And he had to correct that because of his Philadelphia accent, it wasn't coming out correctly, that it was actually Owl's Lacrosse. And I saw Marty's Owl was in the chat over here, so hi, Marty's Owl.
Marty's L, yeah, it's a solid
Yeah,
toxic caviar, please.
but so I created the Owls Lacrosse account, and I started talking a lot of shit about Marty, and it kind of just took off. People enjoyed it, and from there, I was able to transition into occasionally making serious points and talking about whatever I felt like talking about. Then that turned into Dirtbag Friday, which was named after Marty calling me a dirtbag repeatedly on TFTC. As we rolled into Corona life, which came about about 2.5 months or so after the Alza Cross account started. I had wanted to do something that was maybe originally I had an idea to get a group together that was a study group to get really technical about Bitcoin. Instead, created Dirtbag Friday, and it became sometimes technical, but it's kind of a free for all. It's really like hanging out in a bar with a bunch of Bitcoiners. It turned into a fantastic group, something beyond anything I would have imagined. But regulars who you would know, Katie, who's in the chat at the moment, is obviously a regular. Surfer Jim, Full Metal. We got Oxtail, Ben Nakamoto. Who else? I'm gonna forget people's names and feel really bad. Joe Rogers, Clancy Rogers, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And whoever I forget right now is gonna be in the Telegram group telling me that I'm a piece of shit because I forgot to say their names. But just really, really good people. Ended up kind of rolling that into doing the Alza Cross Awards as the closing event at BitBlock Boom last summer, and it's just been really interesting from there. It's given me a chance to interact with all kinds of people, get to meet Bitcoiners who at one point were, I only knew them as people who I listened to, people who I read. Um, in my world of being obsessed with Bitcoin for the last 5 years or so, these were like my superstars, and I get to interact with these people all the time now, and it's great.
On the Zoom call, or you on the Telegram group, or all of that? Is that
Yeah,
public available? People can
kind of
join, or
both at the same time. So the link goes through the Telegram group every week. I keep it different. That so it's that grew out of, I was doing kind of a video podcast for a while, and had an incident with that. I think you guys will remember in the early days of lockdown when everybody was doing Zoom calls with open links. There were people who were dialing into them with all kinds of like illegal pornography that we don't need to describe. And that happened. I was actually talking to, so I had it was up on YouTube. I was talking to John Vallis, had an incident like that, and which will never air, obviously. So I started doing links privately just to kind of keep that under control. And hopefully that era is gone with people screwing around like that. But yeah, now it's somewhat to keep the group under control. As far as the size, we tend to be about, let's say, max out about 35 people on a weekend is a big group. I think we've maybe gone a little bit bigger than that on rare occasions. But people come and go. You can dial in whenever you want. I actually may be kind of late to it tonight. I have some family obligations that I have to take care of. But you can drop in and drop out. People will dial in while they're in their cars. These comments are distracting.
I'm sorry. Should I not
funny.
put them on the screen?
No, it's amusing. I keep looking at what these
Dude,
guys are saying. These are mostly
it's a
people
challenge.
who I know, and yeah, they're people who I know in one way or another. So it's funny anyway. But yeah, it's great. You can sometimes it's a good place to blow off steam for people who are frustrated with the state of the world. It certainly was for me at the beginning. I lived not too far outside of Portland, and apparently there's hookers coming that Katie ordered. And
apparently Katie ordered them. Really, I think we got to try and keep it a little. Katie, come on, we got to try and keep it a little bit, family friendly here. Really, tone it down, please.
It's typical Katie. I mean, if Katie's there, there's usually a bunch of hookers in tow. Everybody knows that. So, but that was frustrating to me to be kind of locked up, but also the city that was my city where I would go to do things was just done. I look like Elrond from Lord of the Rings. Jeez, that's interesting. Is this because I have the carnivore point on my ears? They call this little cartilage thing the carnivore's point. So that was frustrating, and I got to kind of share my frustrations with the world on that. But that I don't like focusing on stuff like that, even though I end up doing that a lot of times. But just the positivity that you also get from Bitcoiners, where the rest of the world felt like it was just shutting down and dying off, metaphorically. And I was surrounded by people who really embraced that, who seemed to like it. And then I go to Bitcoin world, and it's like people are talking about what they're doing next and where they're traveling, what they're seeing and learning, and just embracing life. And that was really, that's something that I needed a dose of. So it helped me a lot to be able to do that every week. It was like kind of medicine for me in a way. And like we were talking about on Adam Meister's show earlier, there are people I know who, you don't see them for a long time, and then you'll see them on Zoom or whatever, and they look like hell. They've been, it became a joke in the beginning.
Unlike us, Al. Unlike us, right?
I mean, come on.
I mean,
you can't beat this. Well, one of the advantages of this is that I don't have like my quarantine lack of haircut, where I get the greasy, stringy hair. Head blade, unendorsed unpaid endorsement there. But yeah, where you see people are like, oh my God, like they're just embracing this like just depressive state. And not even leaving their house to go like walk around the block or anything like that. And I just didn't relate to that at all. And there were people who I knew who lived in the same town I did, and to hear their experience, you would have thought it was a totally different world. I mean, I lived in a place where there was very, very low incidence of corona, and I knew people who just, they were afraid of their own shadow, and I just didn't relate to that. And Bitcoiners were just embracing this, and I think you're going to see that that gap intensify as people don't realize what's going to hit them yet, as far as the economy and the consequences of all this money printing. We're obviously thinking about it, but when the shit starts hitting the fan on all this stuff, people are going to freak the hell out. People who are kind of the normies, for lack of a better term. We're just printing trillions of dollars, and the consequences of that are going to be ugly. And I want to be around Bitcoiners who get that this was coming and who made preparations for it. And I don't even mean that in a prepper sort of way. Like I don't want my future and my son's future, to be hunkering down waiting for the end of the world. I want to be embracing life and finding places where life is going on, So it's Bitcoiners are kind of helping me keep my mindset in the right place on that.
Yeah. Bitcoiners seem to have a, we already skeptical of corrupt deep state, military complex, central banking, and it kind of opens our mind up to the fact that politicians are not there for our sake; they're there for their sake. Government is for government, and yeah, so we already are skeptical about the things we are told because we mostly realize that we're mainly fed lies constantly through mainstream media. I always say so. There's a few topics, maybe two in my life, where I really, really have, spent a lot of time and, gotten to know a lot in that area. And anytime I see mass media say anything about that, I realize that they don't know what they're talking about. And let's be fair, a journalist has to cover 500 topics a year. They can't be experts, so they say a lot of gibberish. But I just want to cover. So how do people join dirtbags? Just so we cover that before moving on.
Well, just to back up 1 second, what you were describing there's a term for that. It's called Gell-Mann amnesia.
Okay.
I think it was popularized by Michael Crichton, who wrote Jurassic Park. But the idea is that you read an article in the paper or wherever in your field of expertise, and you go, these people don't know what the hell they're talking about. They got everything wrong. And then you go and read the next article about something totally different, and you just kind of assume that that's the news. And it's like, well, these are the same people who screwed up that thing that you know about. This thing you don't really know that much about, they're not anymore right about that either. But it's called Gell-Mann amnesia. So Dirtbag Friday, best way to get into that is to DM me. My DMs are open, as lots of scammers know. I get invited to trade shitcoins all the time by fake Pierre Rochard.
The intro is always hello.
Oh yeah, it's always hello, which is like you would think that they would not make it so easy to identify. But yeah, I get fake Pierre Rochard. I got a fake Bitstein the other day, and it's just kind of hilarious because it's like if you know anything about those two, they're not going to be telling you come trade Dash or whatever the hell. So it is funny, but yeah, my DMs are open. I can invite you to the Telegram group. There's a few other people in the Telegram who are admins who can add people too. But
Katie's not one of them.
No, Katie abused her privileges and she got kicked off. So
for good reasons.
No, I'll let you in on a little secret. Katie is the only one who has actually kicked someone off of the Telegram group.
Ooh, tough lady.
Yeah. Oh no, I take that back. There was a second one more recently. But yeah, there was someone early on that she kicked off, and I more recently kicked someone else off too. It is the most mildly moderated group. I wield my minuscule authority incredibly sparingly. But it's not cool to go after people and say weird stuff and be creepy and all that. So
no.
Yeah, so I welcome disagreement. I would never kick someone out for having an opinion that I don't like. I think the whole point of it is to, if you don't side with someone on something, let's have it out and see who's right, or try to convince the others. But it's just, any of the regular online weirdo shit that, get out of your mom's basement and talk to a real girl once in a while, and and maybe you'll feel better about yourself. But um, yeah, so you know, I can join people to the Telegram. I'm a little bit these days. I'm thinking about it a little bit differently, just because we're getting to such a big number. But and I like that feel, which is why some people have asked me to do a clubhouse version of it. And we might do something different at that point. But I do like that we have kind of a community right now. Um, but it's, and it's great to see new blood, though. So just, if you really want to be part of it, just DM me, and we'll talk about it. Um, I've not really found recently that Fridays have gotten overwhelming at all. We maybe had a point where there were so many people that they were talking over each other, when maybe interests. Oh, we're not a community, we're a family. Katie says so.
Who says? Who's? Oh,
Uh,
all right.
let's
No.
use.
So I don't read them. Otherwise, I can't. I just throw it up. Of course.
Yeah.
I have no idea what's going on.
We'll use the term ohana, as the Hawaiians would say, which can mean all of those things: community, family, town, group of friends, whatever. Because I'm wearing a fake
I
Hawaiian shirt today.
but I heard several people say that Katie really is more like a community type of member than like a family thing. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
I've always thought of her as sort of,
Part of the community.
she's part of my community, not my family.
Anyways, I just want to say, so now people know they should DM you. Obviously, I do have your Twitter link down
Yeah.
below, so people can go there and DM you if they want to hang out with some cool Bitcoiners. And what time are you guys going today? I think I might want to try myself, to be honest.
We're let's see. So it's 6 p.m. It's always been 6 p.m. Pacific. Sometimes I have to think of it because I've changed time zones. But yeah, it's 6 p.m. Pacific is when we start. It can go, which this sounds insane if you've never been part of it, but it can go for 8 hours, 9 hours. Um, there are some dirtbags who have overnight jobs who will stay on there, super super late at night talking about whatever. And I'll leave it up and running even after I go to bed. Um, so it's a long thing, and anybody's welcome to drop in and out, as they please. It's not like you have to be there exactly as we start, and then it goes X amount of hours, and then we're all done. It's really kind of a come and go situation.
So it's a Zoom call, and the link will
Hmm.
be shared in the Telegram
In the, in
group,
the in the
or
Telegram, yeah. So the
all right.
Telegram is just 24/7. The Telegram just goes all of the time, which is hilarious. It can be annoying sometimes if I don't turn my alerts off and I'm trying to sleep and my phone just keeps blowing up at 3 in the morning or whatever. Because we've got people in, one of whom is actually, well, I don't want to dox, but we've got people in Hawaii. We've got people in Europe. Shout out to Jackie, who's probably, I don't know if he's awake right now. I don't know what time it is in Italy right now. So we've got people just going all the time, and it's awesome. And there's all kinds of conversations about anything you can imagine. My fiat job? No,
Yeah.
I'm actually looking for a role in Bitcoin. My fiat job used to have nothing to do with Bitcoin whatsoever. Um, so you were asking me earlier what I drink. I was in the restaurant resort management business, also in the alcohol business. I used to give lectures on wine and spirits, or as part of my role. So I definitely loved my alcohol. I have stopped, actually, just kind of for the hell of it. After BitBlock Boom, I stopped drinking this year, because it had been so long since I'd gone that long without drinking, just to get in better shape and just see how it was. And I have a passion for wine. I have a sommelier certification, but I also have an allergy that I have developed to wine, which is kind of a bitch because I joke that it's sort of like if you're a veterinarian and you become allergic to dogs. It's
Problem.
kind of a problem. So I really do have a passion for fine wine, but it's very rare that I drink it. I have to load myself up with antihistamines before I do so, or else I can get really sick. Like off of like half a glass of wine can get
Dude,
me really sick.
you don't want to have to take medicine to drink wine.
Yeah,
Then like you can either I mean, maybe that's a sign, like someone's telling you something to chill.
yeah. Well, that
um
was part of my motivation to stop. Was I could get the way that it would manifest itself is usually I would initially have a little bit of a flush reaction when I drink it, and which is weird because the only thing that's like that condition that I'm aware of is something that only exists in East Asians, and I am definitely not East Asian in my background. But then I would also hours and hours later I'd get migraines and I'd have just vomiting for like hours to the point where it would like blow
okay.
out blood vessels in my eyes and stuff. And
Is
I can
this
control
after
that.
3 bottles of red wine or
Yeah.
even after?
No, I mean it. So it could be if it was the right sort of wine. It could be after like one glass. It could do that, but it would take hours to kick in. I can control that worst part of it now with antihistamines, but I still feel weird. And like you were starting to say, it's like I started to wonder, what is this actually doing to me that I don't see, internally on a little micro level. So somebody likes my eyebrows. Um, yeah.
Wages to wealth.
Oh yeah.
It
So
must be plowing
I
plowing wages into Bitcoin. That must be the wages to wealth thing.
yeah. So I backed away from all that, and but I can drink distilled spirits. They don't do it to me because the process of distillation removes the histamines. So I can do that. I've just chosen not to. I mean, I can drink a half a bottle of whiskey and be fine. I've always had a pretty high alcohol tolerance, but I've just chosen not to. And with a young son who likes to wake up in the middle of the night, the idea of having a hangover at 4 in the morning and dealing with a 15-month-old doesn't sound fun right now. So maybe I'll wait till he's a little more independent before I think about indulging again. We'll see.
Yeah,
Although
you can wait till
Miami's
he's
coming up.
18.
Yeah, Miami's coming up, and he's probably not going to be with me there. So who knows? I'm
All
hanging
right.
out with some real degenerates there, so in house. So.
So who are they? The degenerates.
So I'll be in a house with American Hodl, with Vake. I believe Bitcoin Person will be there, and Boa Dread I think is going to be there in that house. So I'm sure it's going to be a fun time. It's going to be cool. I love all those guys. Get to hang out and see them, and yeah, and it'll be a nice little getaway too. So.
Yeah.
Vegan wine. What are you guys talking about?
It's kind of vegan already, isn't it? Or am I just
Okay.
missing out on something?
So I'll wine nerd out on you for a little bit. So this is going to be disappointing to any vegans who didn't know. A lot of wine is not actually vegan, and this is going to sound crazy, but there's a process called fining where if you look like kind of hold up to a light, some wines have really small little particles in it. To clarify that, you use proteins. The Spanish, I think, traditionally used bull's blood in the past, and it would settle out and it sucks up all the little particles. Now they generally use it's derived from egg white. They use something for the fining process. So yeah, if you really are hardcore vegan, I have two brothers who are hardcore vegans. You've got to go for unfined wines because they will use egg albumin for that process. But I don't care about that because I'm a carnivore.
Right. Yeah. I gotta say, after the restaurants opened again in LA, at least, I mean, for outside, soon they're gonna open for inside because I mean, it's winter and winter in LA. I mean, temperature can come down to 20 Celsius, if you know what that is. You
I
gotta
always have
wear
to
like
run the calculations. Like,
you gotta wear at least a hoodie or something when you're
yeah.
outside at night. It's winter, it's cold in LA.
Yeah.
But why don't we try talking a little bit about well, why don't you tell us about your you know expectations for this bull run that we're in? How do you
Mhm.
see that? If we should touch price a little bit.
Yeah. Well, I keep going back and forth on the side of is this the exit velocity cycle, or is this at least a cycle that's not going to be like the other cycles? And so here's where I'm cautious: is this is my first bull run where I am like a pretty serious Bitcoiner. The previous bull run was when I was just starting to learn about Bitcoin. I mean, we can get into my story of how I got into Bitcoin in a minute if you want to, but
Yeah.
my when I jumped in, you'd have to look up the date. Would have been right after, it was the second time that Andreas was on the Joe Rogan show. That was what I heard that made it really click for me. I'd heard of Bitcoin before, and we can get into that too. But
When was that?
well, so I initially, first time I heard about Bitcoin was probably, I'd have to look up when it was, probably 2010, 2011. There was an article in Wired magazine. And like everybody, I'm kicking myself that I didn't pay better attention back then. But
Same here.
yeah, I mean, the article,
2011. I rejected the idea. I saw an article, and because Satoshi had used the word miner, and I'm like, there's no physical miners on like in the internet online. And yeah, I'll give you a chance to have a bite of yogurt there and get your
my Icelandic
probiotics.
yogurt.
Get your.
If you want to send me free yogurt, I'll shill you all day.
Yeah, Sikis, we got like 3 live viewers here. Why don't you send us some yogurt? We might just push sales higher. No, I'm kidding. So where was I? What were we talking about? Just the yogurt.
You're reading in 2010 about miners.
Oh, yeah. So I was reading this article. I said, all right, this is interesting. Like this new money and everything. I've always been interested in money. And then I got to the part in the article that spoke about then miners find new Bitcoin. And to me, I just pictured some computer game where, World of Warcraft or Farmville or whatever they're called. And that to me made me believe that it's just like a computer game. It's not actual, like,
exactly the impression that I
whatever,
Yeah, I came away from that Wired article thinking that it was some sort of a gaming token. Just the way that it was framed in that, and I'd have to go back and read the details, and because I am curious as to whether it was a poorly written article or if I just missed it. Because if I read it now, I might think like, oh man, I really should have understood from this. But part of the frustration for me with that is I was very interested in Austrian economics already at that point, and I had been for a long time. If I had made the connection there, it would have. Forget the money. I mean, yeah, I'd be a bajillionaire by now. But not just the money, but the hope that it gives people. Because I was I'm a little bit older probably than most of the people who are in the dirtbags group. And I remember the 2008 crash very well. Oh man.
Yeah, so I had this before we went live.
That's a hell of a coincidence.
There was Wages to Wealth had a comment in the chat about Danish people can't resist yogurt. I love my yogurt, but sorry to interrupt you.
I swear to the audience, we did not coordinate that we would both be eating Siggies when
I didn't even know it was Siggies. I just realized when I took it up. Anyway, Siggies.
So I actually, so I'm going to digress for a second, but I years ago, before I was more hip to OPSEC and that kind of thing, I did 23andMe and found out that I do have some Scandinavian DNA in me, which I think is probably from the Irish side of my family, because the Vikings conquered Ireland for a while. Dublin was founded by the Vikings, so I probably get those genes from there.
Do you know? Okay, so you have some Danish ancestry.
Yeah, well, it said Scandinavian. We
Scandinavian,
can figure out where they sailed from, but yeah.
Yeah, we sail from all over. So did you know that on the east coast of England, or maybe entire coastline, including Scotland, I'm not sure, but all the cities that are called, for instance, by, like that ends on the by, that is back from Danish, because by is means city in Danish. So Darby is, that comes from the. I don't know if they have it in Sweden and Norway as well, but definitely.
So like the way the Germans have Berg, it would probably be Boo and Berg are probably similar etymology to them. Yeah, we're talking linguistics today on.
We are.
For those of you who just tuned in.
We're talking about yogurt and ancestry, and we all come from the Vikings on the to some extent. But yeah, let's get back on that bull run. We want some moon juice.
So I read that article, kind of missed the point, and I didn't think about it for a while. This is kind of funny, or people might find this funny. Every time I saw anything about Bitcoin, they always had that picture of the coin with the bee that has all the circuitry on it. And for a little while, I thought, like, is a Bitcoin like some sort of like physical thing, and you can like load money onto it, and almost like a gift card or something? Like, I actually thought that there was this thing called a Bitcoin that was this like circuit board coin. And then my second touch with it was at my old job. Somebody on my staff was a big gamer, and he ended up, I can't remember if we fired him or he quit. He was a very, very shy individual, and he didn't really interact with customers well.
So you let him go.
Yeah. So some of our other staff lived with him. They all rented a house together. And months later, somebody mentioned his name, and I asked them, what's he up to these days? And somebody said, well, have you ever heard of Bitcoin? And I said, I've heard of it. I don't know that much about it. And they said, well, yeah, he plays video games, and he earns Bitcoin playing video games. And so he's kind of living off that. And this would have been probably 2013. So again, kicking myself. But that, to me, that just confirmed in my head, oh, it's this sort of like proprietary gaming token. It's probably owned by like Sony or something like that. Like, I didn't think about it. Third touch was, like I said, the second time that Andreas was on Joe Rogan. I wasn't listening to Joe Rogan at the time when he was on the first time, so I did go back and listen to it. But when I heard Andreas on there, it was like, oh, wait a minute, I get this. Like, this I understand now. And I had come from the standpoint of somebody who I was kind of a gold, owning a bunch of gold. I bought tickets to see Peter Schiff speak. That's how into this that I was. And
without owning gold, you bought the ticket, but not the gold.
Yeah, I bought probably a $20 ticket, but not a bar of gold. I didn't really have the money to buy a bunch of bullion back then. I had been so worried since the crash, and when I saw the money printing, which seems like a joke now compared to what we're seeing, but it was like, this is not going to end well. Like, there's no way that this ends okay. And this is where I talk about Bitcoin giving people hope. I felt like it was just so depressing, because it was like, you know what, whatever I do with life and my career or whatever now, it's not going to matter, because all of this is going to just crash and turn to dust like soon. Like, they can't keep this going forever, and we're going to.
And where are we now? Where are we on the time?
I'd say we've accelerated quite a bit. I mean, that was part of the thing with Corona, is I think we moved up the timeline for Bitcoin, but also for this stuff in the world, by probably 10 years. So that's a good news, bad news. It's good for us, but like I said, with the hope that Bitcoin gives you, there is a great world that we can build. But I think we need to really, really, really never stop thinking about the fact that those who are not on board, which is almost everybody, they're going to have a bad time ahead of them when we start hitting the consequences of this stuff. And I don't know what that's going to look like. As an American, I live in the country that has the gold reserve currency, and has at the moment, the most powerful military. And it may not look like it did for some of these other countries that hit hyperinflation. There may be games that we can play to kind of hide some of that, but it doesn't get rid of it. It just kind of hides it in a way that, for example, the fact that college education is becoming out of reach for most people, that's just a small example. Or being able to own a home, is becoming further and further out of reach for a lot of people. And stuff like that is going to become much more painful as time goes on. And it may really hit crisis point, in a few years. The amount of trillions of dollars that we're printing is just, it's not tenable. If that works out, then we're all wrong about everything, and you can just print monopoly money all day long, and it's no problem.
Yeah. So how long do you think that the dollar will still be a relevant currency? I want to get into that moon juice.
Yeah, I mean, here's how it's changed though. We were we were looking at a situation, I think, before where this will go on for X amount of years, say it's 10 years, maybe it's even another 20 years, and then it crashes and it's all going to hell. And we're getting into this like Mad Max world until things all reset. Bitcoin, with Bitcoin, we don't have to do that now. It doesn't have to get
Exactly.
that route. And there's going to be an irony for a while where Bitcoin gets blamed for the situation, because as capital flees to Bitcoin, you're going to see politicians who start to say, "Oh no, we did everything. We were right. We love you. We're taking care of you. We care about the people. It's this Bitcoin thing that's screwing up the economy." They're going to say that for a while, but ultimately Bitcoin will win out, and Bitcoin will be the thing that saves everybody, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because
Absolutely.
there was no other route before. It was, we're on a train that is going to, the bridge is out. We're going to hit this canyon with no bridge, and we're all going down. And now with Bitcoin, it does not have to be that way. It's going to be hard for a lot of people, but it's not. It's not going to be what it could have been without Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Which one of
I
us?
agree.
Just looking at the comments, which one of us is Jason Statham and which one is Bruce Willis?
Good question. We'll have to see what they say. I would, yeah, that's interesting, or maybe not, but good question. What Al, what I'm thinking regarding, if we're going to go into a Mad Max world and all of that, I think that because the alternative is already ready, Bitcoin as a better sound money is already there and ready. I don't think we have to go through hell and civil war and riots and everything. I mean, sure, there can be riots in US anytime. It's kind of primed for that, with a wealth disparity caused by central bank money printing that is only helping people holding assets, which is the more wealthy or affluent people, and just totally damaging people who are surviving on a paycheck from month to month without assets. So people, people create revolution when times are really, really dire, and central banking in US can print even more money and ruin the livelihoods of people at the lower end of society even more, because it's a global reserve currency, so they can get away with it, in my opinion. But Bitcoin is ready as sound money, so I think it will be a relatively peaceful and wonderful transition to a much better world. But in the short term, the bull run here, what's your expectations? You talk about whether you think it's the super cycle, means dollar collapse, we go to infinity or $1 million per Bitcoin in this cycle before the next halving in roughly April 2024, or
I think
what?
it's some version of super cycle. When you're seeing now all of the institutional buy-in, obviously MicroStrategy is the one that we all know about. Although I think we, as Bitcoiners, we need to step back for a second and realize the general public has never heard of MicroStrategies and has no idea who Michael Saylor is. But things like Tesla getting into it, that's going to have a huge impact on the public awareness. But these guys are buying, billions upon billions of dollars worth collectively. I mean, MicroStrategy is insane. Like, they just don't stop stacking. But you're getting all of these different companies. You're eventually gonna hear announcements from Apple, from Google, whoever. Like, there is no better performing asset, and it has all these characteristics which make it, much safer in uncertain times. But as that happens, it's like, this is kind of the day that we've been waiting for. The other one, the Norwegian company that just announced last week, I can't remember.
Acre, with that created CT. Acre, that hugely wealthy energy company in Norway that founded a daughter company, I guess you can say, CTSEETEE, as I recall it. That is 100% Bitcoin focused. They founded it with approximately, I think, $60 million US, and they're going to be strictly buying Bitcoin, mining Bitcoin, holding Bitcoin, interacting, trying to improve Bitcoin community, community or space or whatever. Yeah.
And they, we've been talking about Bitcoin for so many years to people outside of Bitcoin in terms of like you start with like trying to convince them that it's even legitimate. And now we're done with that now. Like it's now understood that this is a real thing. This isn't Beanie Babies. This isn't whatever the hell it was being called before. This is a real thing. So we just leapfrogged that, and we're entering into the phase now where it's like scramble to get your piece as much as you can. So as that happens with institutional buy-in, you know, we've already got, somebody was telling me the numbers the other day, but between Grayscale and Cash App and all these guys, they're buying like 100 and let's just say 150% of what's being mined every day. So supply is drying up because people are going to stop selling, and there's no way to make that up without huge jumps in price. We're getting to this point where it's just understood that Bitcoin is a real thing, and the governments of the world in their idiocy could not be helping us more than they are right now. This just extraordinary printing. It's like, we don't have to make the case of like, hypothetically, this will happen someday. It's like, hey, it just happened. And you just see it. Like they just signed this bill for another 3 trillion or another 4 trillion, like it's nothing, you know? So they are kind of the best advertisement for us. But
I agree.
I think this is where this cycle ends with everybody in the world understanding that Bitcoin is a real thing and everybody trying to get whatever they can get. And price, I don't know. A year ago, I interviewed American Hodl when I had my little YouTube show for a few episodes. And I thought I was being kind of crazy at the time, saying 750 was going to be the top of the cycle. And now I think that it may be beyond that. It's just, it's going to be extraordinary when you have everybody jumping in, and people who make, Michael Saylor look like child's play. When you have some of the companies that are already some of the richest companies in the world decide they're going to play that same game, but they have billions and billions more dollars than MicroStrategy has.
So you're saying that a year ago you were throwing out $750,000 in this cycle before the next halving, which is scheduled roughly expected about April 2024. But now you're saying we could be substantially higher than that.
Yeah, and I should tell everybody the disclaimer of this is not investment advice. I don't have any models. I have not run regression analysis. This is just gut feeling. I'm not a mathematician. So don't go tell people, well, Al said this was going to happen. This is just totally based on gut feeling and watching history, what has happened before.
And the fact that you've been a financial advisor the last 12 years.
Oh, yeah. No, not at all.
Kidding.
Yeah, don't sue me, anybody. Yeah, this is not an investment. It is better money, as Cap Sodell says. But yeah, it's, what would you rather have than Bitcoin right now? And we talk that way to each other all the time, but it's like, well, no, seriously, like look at everything else. What would you rather have than Bitcoin in terms of money? Don't tell me a happy life, because that's not what I'm talking about. But as far as money goes, what would be better to have? There's nothing. So.
Yeah. Personally, I'm an all-in type of person already by, my kind of personality trait. So that's what I am with Bitcoin. It sounds like you might be the same, or
yeah. I mean, it's hard to argue that you should have, some and something else. And I get the diversifying argument, but it's like when you're diversifying into something that's considerably riskier, it just seems ridiculous. At this point, the only people who think Bitcoin is risky are people who haven't really learned and studied about Bitcoin yet. And we talked about this a little bit today on Adam Meister's show. I brought in, I was talking about March, and I brought up the example of Lieutenant Spears from Band of Brothers and his little speech.
Band of Brothers. I was so happy when you brought it up. It's
a great series.
Favorite. It is, and when you say series, it doesn't even do it justice. The cameras they use, the equipment they used is movie quality. It's movie theater quality, but they happen to put it into 10 episodes of 1 hour. But
I'm gonna actually,
man, it's the best. Yeah.
because some of the people in the chat may have been little kids when it came out and didn't watch it. But so guys, this was produced by Tom Hanks and Steven Spielberg. It's a true story about a unit in World War II. They were a paratrooper unit. They were at Normandy for D-Day. They were actually the unit that captured Hitler's vacation house in the Alps. That's a true story. There's pictures of them kicked back on Hitler's deck, drinking wine out of his own cellar. But really fascinating story. Something that happened with that unit was actually the inspiration for Saving Private Ryan, which is a fictional story, but it was based on something real that happened. They didn't put it in Band of Brothers because they had already covered it in Saving Private Ryan, but that story is sort of true. It did sort of happen there. So anyway, there's a character who's a real guy in there, Lieutenant Spears, and there's a scene where things are just absolutely going to hell. They're trying to take, I believe they're in France, or no, Belgium. They're in Bastogne at this point. And they're trying to take this little village held by the Nazis. And the Americans are pinned down. They're getting shot up. And this lieutenant just comes out of nowhere, basically just runs out into the open, runs into the village, like takes a machine gun nest, runs back out, runs back in again, like, as he's just getting shot at. And it's like nothing. He doesn't even care. And he's just like amazing. And later on, everybody's asking him, like, how the hell, did you do that? And he tells them, we're already dead. When we started this war, we're dead men. And if you live like you are afraid to get killed all the time, you're never going to accomplish anything, and we're not going to win, and then you're going to die. So you've got to just put aside the fear and think, I'm already dead. Being a hodler, it's sort of like I was saying on Meister, it's not we're already dead. It's we've already won. We know why Bitcoin is going to win.
Yep.
And there's going to be a road to get there. There's going to be, like, if you don't understand that there's going to be ups and downs with Bitcoin, you need to look at the chart a little bit, and it's just easy history right there. But we have won. Everything that's happening in the world, it sometimes feels like we are in a bit of a simulation, and we've, everything is playing out as it should be. But just tell yourself, when you're afraid of FUD and of ups and downs relative to the dollar, we're getting where you think we're going to get. And some days are going to be bad, some days are going to be good. But days like last March 12th, there are great opportunities to get more Bitcoin, and don't sweat it.
And it also, 12th March last year is a great reminder, because I saw this happening to a friend of mine, not to take out a fiat loan on your Bitcoin. Don't put your Bitcoin as collateral to take out a loan, because you can risk losing everything. I know nobody wants to sell their Bitcoin, but it's just too much risk involved of losing everything you put up as collateral. I would personally rather deposit 5-10% and get an interest rate on it, which I find more secure than taking a fiat loan against it. I saw it happen to a friend. He lost almost all his Bitcoin. It's terrible.
Yeah, I mean, if you're going to do that, I would say just be aware of where we could be in the cycle, and you should be very, very, very over collateralized. Don't.
So what's the point, right? Like if you only take out a loan of 5%, it's maybe you shouldn't even put it there in the first place. I see what you mean. Be over collateralized.
Somebody who's been putting all of their dry powder into Bitcoin, and you don't have any dry powder, and then you need some, maybe there's a good reason for that. But I think just listening to people like Preston talk about what's coming in the future, there may be safer options with that. There may be better interest rates coming with that. That's not my area of expertise at all. I don't want to get into that. He could explain a hell of a lot better than me what he's talking about when he says that stuff. But I think there will be options with that we can be comfortable with going forward. Right now, there's a certain amount of risk involved, and at least do something where you are not handing over your private keys and total control that to somebody else. Because not your keys, not your Bitcoin, things will blow up at some point, and you might not be made whole. I keep saying this, there is no Bitcoin FDIC. Like, no one is coming to save you if your Bitcoin bank blows up. So just be aware of that. It's extreme personal responsibility and personal sovereignty on that, which that goes good ways and bad ways. You can't be lazy about it.
Absolutely. So yeah, but be aware of what you're doing. So what else? What else can we cover? So you're saying that you think that we might go above 750. I think that's a very reasonable call.
Mm.
And how do you see the chance of super cycle, dollar collapse, and Bitcoin taking over as money of the world? Before COVID, personally, I used to say after the next halving, like 25, 26, something like that. But COVID is just has made this bull run so steep. It's quantitative easing on steroids. It's just obvious, even for conservative business people now, that the dollar is nowhere to store your value, and it goes for the same for all other fiat currencies around the world.
I,
That they're just looking increasingly, bad places to hold value. At such a rate, such a speed. This understanding now is spreading from guys like Michael Saylor from MicroStrategy that not only converted all their 425 million initially dollars on the spreadsheet to Bitcoin, but then later started early December, raised $650 million in convertible bonds, basically publicly, transparently speculating, an attack on the dollar by taking dirty fiat
yeah,
debt, buying Bitcoin, and then again, what is it? Was it in February? He sold another $1 billion
yeah.
dollars worth of convertible bonds and 50 million, and then threw all of that in. So when is he going to do it the next time? When are other companies going to do that? They're taking a lot of Bitcoin out of circulation and into deep, deep, deep ice cold storage.
Yeah.
So I mean, the chance of super cycle this time around has definitely increased because of
I
COVID.
think what you're going to see probably in the short term is these companies that have taken that chance with Bitcoin as store value. You're going to see other corporations see their success with it. So there's kind of a built-in delay there, because they're kind of, let's say, making this bet right now, and then that's going to have to play out for a certain amount of time, and then you're going to see this second jump into it that makes right now look like nothing. Um, so I think within this cycle, you could see Bitcoin begin to replace the dollar as a store value for sure. I don't think it will happen for medium of exchange anytime soon. I don't think the US dollar is going anywhere. The US dollar will still be around and people will be exchanging it, but they're going to have to offer all kinds of incentives pretty soon, to get you to store your capital or to store your value in dollars versus Bitcoin. And I think it will be widely understood that the dollar is an inferior place to store your value. The irony is, like, most of the games that they would probably have played in the past, people are going to be able to see through now. I don't know what they would do if it was like to offer, really, really good interest rates or something to store your wealth in dollars, but then that sets off a whole other cascade from all the debt that's been, so it's just a mess. If they do that, but I could see it being understood by most corporations by the end of 2 or so years from now that, yeah, you don't want to keep your wealth in US dollars. You want it to be in Bitcoin. Obviously, like, things that right now we have to really, like, explain to people is going to be like, yeah, of course. There's also things that we're not going to explain anymore. Like, why is Bitcoin legitimate, for example? And you get into this with people where you have to explain what hash functions are and how the blockchain operates and proof of work and all of that. The people who are your experts will still learn about these things. They'll still understand these things, but the general public doesn't really know or care about that, or doesn't need to know about that. People ask those questions at first because they want to know, like, why is this real? And how do I know this isn't just a scam or whatever? And once you understand how that works, then you get, okay, this is how mining operates, etc. People won't care about that anymore. They'll just know that it's this thing that you use, in the same way that I always use the example of, most people I know don't know how TCP/IP works. Most people have never even heard of TCP/IP that I know, but they use it every day. They don't need to understand how it works to make use of what it was built to do. So we're gonna move into that phase of it as well.
Yeah, absolutely. It will become the perception of Bitcoin is changing in in people's eyes, in companies' eyes, and I think like pre-COVID, um, Bitcoin was seen by many people as a as speculative asset, and you know that it would be the conservative thing to do to own other things as well.
Yeah.
But now with it kind of changed, and holding Bitcoin and Bitcoin only, is really seen by more and more people as the conservative thing to do. To have all your wealth or savings in Bitcoin is more conservative now than it was 12 months and one day ago. Also, 12 months ago, before Michael Saylor, if a company, if a CFO wanted to store company treasury assets in Bitcoin, store company value in Bitcoin, that was probably a career risk to even start,
Oh yeah.
talking about that. While now you could be at a career risk if you're not open to that discussion.
Yeah, I think there's protection in going along with the crowd and being wrong, more so than going against the crowd and in the long term being right. Because those guys you were just talking about could always say, well, nobody thought this, nobody did that, and that is kind of a cover your ass situation where it's like, well, yeah, how was I supposed to know, that this is what I should do? Um, but the people who care more about, well, what is the opportunity here, are the ones who are going to benefit greatly. I think the other thing that we should probably be careful of, those of us who are trying to help onboard new people, is the diversification argument as it applies to shitcoins,
Yeah,
because people get hit with that all the time too. And if you don't know better, these narratives sound reasonable. If you don't really understand Bitcoin that well, or how blockchains in general work, how these things are issued, pre-mines, all of that, it sounds kind of reasonable. Like, well, you wouldn't want it all in this one thing. We'll do this and this and this too. And but it really is like saying, well, do you want to have all of your wealth in diamonds? Like, shouldn't you also invest in bags of dog shit as well? Like, well, no. Just having different things, it depends what those things are. And I'm sympathetic to people who don't get it. When I first went down the rabbit hole and started learning about these things, I thought that the Ethereum narratives were really interesting. And I went to seminars where people were talking about these things, and I luckily was able to, you know, I think the way that I became a maximalist was by sitting in rooms full of shitcoiners, because I would sit there and listen to their narratives, and I'm thinking, like, I seem to be the only person in the room sometimes who understood why what these guys were saying didn't make sense. And tokenizing everything and taking things that were not endogenous to the blockchain and saying, well, we're going to put them on the blockchain. It's like, what the hell does that even mean? Like, you can't explain to me why this would be better than a database, or that was a meme in 2017. It was like, why not a database?
we were talking a
But
little bit about that today, but carry on
all right,
Adam's
well,
show.
yeah, we got into that a little on Meister's show. But the seeing that over and over, and I went to some of these seminars. I went to something that was put on by Portland State University, was doing a blockchain certificate program, and I was thinking of taking it. I thought it might be good. I thought it might be a good credential to have. And I went to some of their information sessions, and I'm in a room with a bunch of tech guys. And this is the interesting thing that you see too in Bitcoin, is a lot of people who come to this from the tech side can't see through the tech. They can't see through the code and through features. That's all that they think about, because that's how software usually operates in their world. It's all about features. They can't see the bigger picture. And I'm a non-technical guy in a room full of very technical people. I'm in a seminar being led by a guy who's like a 30-something year engineer with Intel. And I realized, oh my God, this guy has no idea what he's talking about. And it wasn't just that we had different opinions on things. Like, he legitimately did not understand how Bitcoin's blockchain operated. And he's here teaching this course all day on it. I'm just sitting here like, I can't believe this. But it kind of saved me also from dropping 13 grand on a program led by somebody who doesn't know what they're talking about. So that was good. But that stuff like that helped me start to realize that, I thought the maximalists were kind of weirdos at first. They were kind of fundamentalists, and they are. But I realized like, oh, I'm one of them. Like it went from like there are these extreme people over here to no, they're right, and I'm right there with them.
Yeah. Being a I think it's Vitalik Buterin really that helped us get those badges of honor first. Was he the first to? I don't know, but
I
if
think
he
he
was the
was the
first to
first to
call
use
us
the term.
maximalists, and
Mhm.
then he's another time because they don't like that we criticize what we consider scams. But can't we just all get along and we can be over here in the corner and sell scams and get rich on that? Like, why don't we
Yeah.
just talk about features and stuff? No,
Mhm.
we're here to protect people. I have an echo coming from you, Al, but we're here to
Oh,
protect people that maybe
see what
don't
I do.
understand or didn't spend the time educating themselves. So no, it's not okay. We don't want you to get away with scamming people. So we're gonna call it out. And that's why Vitalik, I remember, was saying in a tweet or something that maximalists are just so toxic, and we like embraced it. I am a proud toximalist because I do what I can to help people not be scammed. I'm proud that I'm toxic
Yeah.
towards scams.
Yeah, they really are, despite all of their rhetoric or their sales pitches, they are hurting people and they're ripping people off. When you do a pre-mine on something and you give you and your buddies the special deal that everybody else can't have, that was not what blockchain's for. That's the kind of games that are played in the traditional financial system. And I don't think it's a coincidence that those things are set up perfectly to get your own bags for super cheap, and then you can pump them and dump them later on. There are absolutely are true believers in Ethereum. I don't want to say everybody who's doing it is consciously a scammer. Caps Odell just pointed out that I look like I'm working at McDonald's. I think with my headset here.
I saw the chat and I'm thinking like,
Here.
what's he talking about? Like I was looking at the other chats and seeing, wait, there's nothing there that kind of has anything to do with taking an order.
Yeah.
But yeah, I got you. I got the McDonald's look there.
I can put on my Jimmy Song hat here and do it with that. Does that look a little better? It might hide my face, but
we're doing the caps.
Yeah, we'll do
Follow the
caps
leader,
now so people can
follow the
stop talking
leader.
about our beautiful heads.
Yeah.
But there are true believers in Ethereum or whatever, but it doesn't change the fact that we know what it is. We know it's not going to work. But to diversify, I'll give you an example. So last week I was at the mall and I was wearing an Unchained Capital T-shirt, and on the back of it it says, friends don't let friends sell Bitcoin. And every time I wear that shirt now, somebody says something about Bitcoin to me. So I'm in line at Starbucks in the mall, and this guy comes up to me and asks me about, I'm really interested in Bitcoin. So I start talking to him, and it's amazing because everybody's like, well, what about Doge? Like, where the hell are all these people who've never heard of Bitcoin before are hearing about Doge all of a sudden that they want to ask about that, and if that's better.
Elon
Anyone
Musk.
asked about Ethereum a little too. And I told him, don't mess around with that. I gave him some resources to read. And then I invited him I should show this. So if you're in Texas on the 25th in Houston, we're doing a Bitcoin meetup. I'll retweet the link later on. But if you go to meetup.com, search for, Houston Bitcoin keywords, it'll come up. You'll see it. But we're gonna do a meetup, and it's open to anybody from hardcore maximalists to people who are just learning about Bitcoin, who have questions. It's just come and meet other Bitcoiners. There's really no more powerful thing, I think, than meeting other Bitcoiners and kind of just getting to interact with them and seeing what they think. But just to shill that. But yeah, if you're in Texas, come to the Houston Bitcoin meetup on the 25th. It is at 6:15 p.m., 6:15 p.m. And Daniel Prince is talking shit to me now. I've hit the big time.
Has he?
But
is he? What is he saying? Is he?
He says I'm a soy boy, basically. I have a Frappuccino soy latte. Yeah. Um,
they're asking when scarves. So I didn't tell you before we started that the way we pump the price of Bitcoin on Toxic Cat Bear is actually by wearing a scarf. The scarves
yeah,
are
I don't
armed for all
think.
time high. They're armed for 100,000. They're armed for 288. They're armed for 500,000, 750,000, as you said, and for infinity. Um,
I would have bought a scarf if I knew. I don't think I own a scarf.
you know what?
I
Just
now live in a subtropical area. I think so.
what wasn't
Um,
wasn't it cold enough in New Jersey to need a scarf?
yeah, but it's been a long time since I lived there. I grew up there, but I have not lived there for quite a long time.
Oh, I
So.
thought you left during the COVID
Oh no
pandemic,
no
that kind of
no
thing.
yeah. So that was no. I was just talking about Jersey because of the other guests were talking about it. But no, I was previous to this. I was in Oregon. Um, the region of Oregon that I was in is pretty temperate most of the time. I mean, they do get snow sometimes, but in the valley there, where most of the state lives, you basically have 50s and rainy every single day for about 8 months, and then that's your
Ouch.
winter. And then summer, it's hot and dry, doesn't rain at all pretty much the whole summer. So it's kind of feast or famine on that. But if you go to the eastern side of the Cascade Mountains, which is probably three-quarters of the state by area, it's drier over there. It looks a little bit more like Montana or something like that. Whereas the when you get west of the Cascades, it's very, very lush and green. It's like what the Seattle area looks like. It just rains all the time, which is you get used to it, I guess. It can be kind of gloomy, but all that rain leads to a lot of greenery, a lot of incredible fir trees, like giant forests. Um, it's cool. The state is filled though with is filled with soy. Put it that way. It's a very soy state. There's a lot of people there who really embraced lockdown life, and just wanted to kind of be huddled down and angry about that. Um, the state is full of politicians who think it's cool when their side burns down buildings. And that's actually that went on again last night. The news generally didn't
Oh,
cover it,
really?
but it's so here's the thing. People think the Portland riots stopped like 5 months ago. No, they did not. They still go on all the time. They just barely
Oh,
get covered. So last night they tried to set fire to the federal courthouse again. Last night. You didn't see that on the news today. They don't like to talk about that
no.
on the news. Yeah. So all these people who are beside themselves at the Capitol riot of how could they do this to a federal, this is a symbol of our country, da, da, da. They have nothing to say about it when it's their buddies doing it in Portland and have been doing it for months and months and months. So I get a little cynical about that. Yeah, their prosecutor there lets people go over and over again. The mayor made excuses for this stuff for months and months and months. It's kind of embarrassing. They're presiding over the destruction of their city, and it's a bad place there right now. It's really kind of sad. And there are people there who I like a lot, and I wish the best for them. But the state is run by political extremists, and there's enough people in the state who like it that way, and that's why it stays that way. I mean, you ultimately get what your population votes for.
And
This is where the
what?
anarchists who come to Dirtbag Friday get me convinced.
Right. And are you going at 6 p.m.? Can I come to Dirtbag Friday 6 p.m. today, PST?
Yeah, you're in the Telegram, aren't you?
Yeah, I'm
You
in
were posting
Telegram.
it
So
before.
then,
Yeah,
then yeah,
the
and then I
link.
got
Yeah,
the link is
the
there. The
link will
link is
be
going to be
up.
there.
Yeah, I generally will pin the link about an hour or so before.
Cool.
I might not be there at the beginning of it tonight because I have a few obligations, and I've been talking Bitcoin all day today. But I'll be there at some point tonight for sure. But there's going to be plenty of great people there, people whose names you'll know, and you will have a great time with them.
I'm sure. So
People
how
who are
many
in
people?
this chat, actually.
Oh yeah, awesome.
Mhm.
Look forward to see their faces. Look, that some of the best part of social life really is hanging out with Bitcoiners through the computer. I mean,
Yeah.
to be honest, that's what Toxic Cat Bear is for me. It's like extended social life for me. Hanging out with
Yeah.
Pubby, having different great people on, like yourself, great Bitcoin talk, just chilling and informally having fun and talk Bitcoin like we love doing, watching the world become a better place. Although we might not be there yet, but we're seeing the foundation for the place to, for the world to be a better place, playing out with Bitcoin taking over. And that's why I do find price very relevant. And I think it's okay to talk about it because, as I keep saying, it's the measurement for how far we are in disruption. Because when we reach 20 million, that's it.
Yeah. I had, I guess, in the past, maybe an aversion to talking about price from the standpoint of, I looked at it as just something that the traders did, where every little movement was like da 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 up and down, up and down. And I was more focused on the big picture. But price absolutely does matter in the big picture. We don't get to where we're going to be if we stayed at $3,000 forever. That even though $3,000 if you were here in 2011 sounds like a huge amount, but if it just stayed like that forever, you wouldn't see what's happening now. Number go up is a very, very real thing. It's the simplest and truest meme that I've ever seen in Bitcoin. Number go up does a lot of things. It has a lot of power to it. And that is how we get there. And $1 million Bitcoin, $5 million Bitcoin, like that does start to get us to where we take away the power from these centralized entities who have abused it. You mentioned a little bit in the beginning. I wanted to add, you were talking about people distrusting government and stuff during lockdown. That's really increased that. I think, I was always somewhat distrustful very distrustful of government and of institutions. I generally, though, for most institutions, I kind of at least gave them the benefit of the doubt that they were trying to do what they were supposed to do. And looking at the world after COVID now, institutions are garbage. Like almost all of the big name institutions they just nakedly lie to push a narrative. The WHO is, a scam is putting it nicely. The fact that they basically covered up human to human transmission from China. Their investigation of this, they basically said like, oh, well, we found no evidence of any wrongdoing. Like, well, give me a break. But just, the Lancet published a fake medical study for political reasons. And that's known now. Like, it was a fake study, which they should have caught because the data was just complete nonsense. But every single, you see the school systems, right? I wasn't a big fan of public schools to begin with, but now it's like, what is the point of public schools? Like, you have teachers unions that keep moving the goalposts for not opening. And there's cities where the teachers all got priority for vaccination. And they said, well, then we'll go back. And they said, no, we're not going to go back. It's like, what's the point of you at this point? And it's frustrating, but it also gives, I think, it does a favor for the rest of the world, because you look at that and they are shooting themselves in the foot with stuff like this, because people see that and it's like, why are we listening to you at all? Like, if we don't ever need to go back, then what are we paying you for? And there's just such little trust now in institutions, which unfortunately is, there's a boy who cried wolf situation where maybe institutions are going to try to tell us something important and we're not going to listen. But I think you overcome that by using your own judgment, not just saying, okay, because they said so, looking at the information with an open mind. Don't just think it's wrong because institutions said so, just as much as you shouldn't just think it's right because institutions said so. But yeah, so much of this framework that we've taken for granted is kind of just like it's almost like a jobs program for the blue check class. We have a guest.
We have
Princey with his glass of wine, fresh from the vineyards of France.
Yeah. Al, I don't know if you know Princey, but Al, Princey.
We know each other a little bit.
Yeah. Most people know Princey. Thanks for joining, Princey. You're looking sharp as ever. I will take this opportunity to reset my note, but thanks for coming on, mate. I'm really happy to see you.
You invite me on for a toilet break, Anders. That I love it. And the exact time that Al wants to go on a rant about public education, you couldn't have picked a better time.
right?
But
Yeah, he knows
yeah.
a thing or two about that.
Yeah, but I mean, like Al's been dodging the Once Bitten podcast for ages, so this is a nice time to jump
Very
in here.
soon.
And
How
how
about
you doing, brother?
we'll do this sometime next week. So I mentioned briefly, I think that you were gone from Meister at this point, but I've got an article that's going to come out, I think probably next week. I'm just putting the finishing touches on Bitcoin Magazine, and that'll give us something intelligent to talk about as well. But I wrote an article on how we need to change our conception of store of value, because I think we've been making a mistake when we talk about store value. So when that comes out, I'm just teasing that a little bit for the general public. But yeah, that would be something we talk about, and obviously anything else too, because I have random opinions and thoughts on all kinds of topics. So it looks like we lost our host.
Yeah,
here.
he was dying for a piss. So
yeah, okay.
I want to know, like, why did you? Because you started your own podcast, and I was loving those. You did 2 episodes, and you had the guy.
I appreciate that.
Yeah, I can't remember.
Yeah.
Who was the guy's name that you had on, like the real deep thinker about the reading, and he did the reading club, and you've been part of that.
Scott Hambrick.
Right.
So I'll get into this a little bit about the podcast, but so Scott Hambrick is a guy who hosts. He has an organization called Online Great Books that you can sign up for, and it's he started it. So he did have a business. It was a data storage company that he started when he was very young. He recently sold it for a boatload of money, but he, as a side hobby, he was a coach for barbell lifting in a program called Starting Strength. And if anybody who's into lifting is probably aware of Mark Ripito. He's kind of the godfather of barbell training. It was that program. Hambrick and some of his fellow coaches started this reading group where they decided they were gonna go through the classics, kind of in chronological order, starting with the Iliad. So basically, I think they were more or less based on both St. John's College in the United States, and I want to say the University of Chicago have really renowned classics programs. And so they went off that reading list, and he would have them over to his house, every few weeks or whatever, and they'd go through this. So you go through, Homer, Aristotle, Plato, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Plutarch, and I think I'm very behind right now, but we're into Romans right now, but and then that'll take you through the medieval period and Aquinas and all of that. So he has that program. He's also got a good podcast called the Online Great Books podcast. They don't just talk about those books; they do some other ones for fun. They actually did one of the Woodhouse Jeeves books, which in America we're not really familiar with. I don't know how well known they are in Europe, but Jeeves the Butler. Read one of those, and they're actually, the humor in those books is over 100 years old, but it holds up. It's actually really funny. But he's an interesting guy, and it turns out that he is sort of a low-grade Bitcoiner. He's owned Bitcoin for quite a while. He, I would say, philosophically aligns with us on a lot of things, and I don't know how much he has, but he's been in it quite before I was. He's not really immersed in Bitcoin culture. He's not super technical at all. It's just he's somebody who bought some Bitcoin back probably in 2010, 2011, something like that. So he probably has, a pretty substantial amount. But he's an interesting guy. But as far as I did have a podcast for a little while. It's probably something I should do again. I was interested in not just talking to Bitcoiners, but I think I was somewhat inspired by when all the riots started happening in America, and there was this idea of just sort of tearing down civilization. I was inspired by the idea of what's the counter to that. What do we want to build up? What kind of things do we want to talk about and support and educate? And I have a young child of my own now who, he's not speaking English and reading yet, but the day will come when when he's ready for those things. And I wanted to talk about that. And I think what I probably found was I was so frustrated with what was going on in the world at that point, that I just kind of didn't feel like talking about that stuff anymore because I was so pissed off about it. And that's a lack of discipline on my part. It's kind of embarrassing that I stopped doing it over something like that. I probably should have kept going, but I may do something like that, you know, again, or something that has a different feel to it. But it was cool to be able to do that. And you know,
I remember
when I started learning about Bitcoin.
I remember your original episode was like just you laying out your thoughts. It was an essay about what was going on with like the cultural shift in America and this like systemic racism kind of problem, and you kind of analogized it to Hamilton, right? You wrote a piece about Hamilton and about how black actors. Yeah, no, it was great. It was brilliant. And we're kind of like analogizing the fact that, you know, black actors are able to play white historical figures and, you know, blah, blah, blah. Mm-hmm. And, you know, what this is to tear all of that down, this is a dangerous path to go down. And I found it to be very intellectually stimulating. This was you know, when all that shit was kicking off in the US, it's weird for us Europeans to watch that shit go down. Like it's like crazy, absolutely crazy. And to have been able to listen to your balanced opinion rather than whatever is getting forced down the funnel of social media or mainstream media or whatever else was just a breath of fresh air. So thank you for doing that. And I urge you to get back on that horse because
thank you. I really do appreciate that. You know, it's great to hear people whose work I respect say that. You know, I always, you know, I tell people how I'm just a Bitcoiner like them. Like I'm a pleb who got obsessed with Bitcoin. I started listening to everybody who was out there. At the time that I started, you know, there was very little content. It was basically Trace Mayer and then Andreas's podcasts, Let's Talk Bitcoin, which wasn't even always about Bitcoin. And there's just very little content. And then this fire hose opened up. And it's like, right now, I think, and then Clubhouse is not helping this either. It's with like, you could 24/7 just be listening to Bitcoin content. And, you know, but there are, I have to pick and choose like what is more valuable to me. And I applied that to myself. I'm like, do they really need another show right now? But so I really wanted to be talking about something that wasn't just what everybody else was talking about. And the thing with Hamilton in particular that I think was cool was I expected it. I expected not be that impressed by it because it had gotten so much hype. You know, my cynical nature maybe was like, oh, it can't be that good because everybody's just like talking about how unbelievable it is and how incredible it is and all that. So I didn't think I'd be that impressed by it, but I wanted to see it. And I was a little bit annoyed with some of the behavior of, you know, the celebrity power behind the show. I don't, you know, I would not say that I don't align philosophically, I'm sure, with some of the people behind it. But it was really cool that there was this common ground there where I think, you know, on the one hand, I was touched by when we got into all this, nobody can play a culture that they're not a part of thing, the hypocrisy of, well, how come they can do that? But when I saw it, I realized like, no, it's kind of a really cool message that he's trying to send, that this is our history as Americans. And honestly, if you want to, you know, I think if you're somebody who embraces Enlightenment culture and what that did to governments in that era, I think you can claim that as yours as well. You don't have to be an American. And this is ours no matter who you are. And I think that was the message that I took from that casting eventually. And I would urge people to watch it if they haven't seen it. In the beginning of it, I thought it was a little bit gimmicky. And then it hit this point, and those of you who've seen it will know, it's at the wedding scene where it just transformed. And I'm just like, wow, this is really, really good. It's a real work of art. And it inspired me to write that. And I'm gonna be honest, I had not thought about that in quite a while. So I'm glad you brought it up because I had forgotten that I even wrote that. So I'm glad that it stands out in your mind. That's makes me think I should reevaluate some things. So
yeah, man, it was great. and everybody should go back and listen to Al's first episode.
And is that on YouTube or is it on a podcast? And mentioning
well,
podcast,
so I did. I initially did a couple of shows on YouTube to start with, and the idea was it would be a podcast that had an interactive audience. So it was basically like Zoom run through YouTube. And the idea was you kind of have this podcast where there was a guest being interviewed, but people could ask questions. And I thought that was kind of a different, interesting thing. And I liked that for a while, and then I got to I think I was telling you I was interviewing John Vallis, and that was going well. And then this was when people were putting child pornography into YouTube streams, and we were in the middle of the interview, and because I had made the link publicly, not realizing that this was a thing, and somebody started streaming like horrific stuff into the stream, and it's the kind of stuff that like. You never, you hope you live your whole life without seeing something like this. It was really bad. And it shook us both. And I booted the person who did it. And, I don't know who it was. It's just some anonymous. But that same name, I later read news articles. It was somebody under the same screen name, did it to events like all over the world. There was an event near me, actually in Oregon. It was like a public library thing they did it to. I think in London there was a legal conference, and the same name did it to that. I obviously sick.
It makes me sick. Let's move on. I mean, I don't know.
Yeah.
So it's
messed up. So, but anyway, that kind of took the wind out of my sails on that, and that's when I started doing a little bit more of a traditional podcast format, and I think I started off by I had some written thoughts, and I was reading that, and then I did some interviews, but I lost steam for sure on that, and I got a little sidetracked with things and got distracted. So I probably should do stuff like that back. I've been working on writing a little bit more. As I said, I have this article coming out soon about intrinsic value, and I think. What I'm hoping what I'm saying is something that's original, that because I don't remember anybody saying this before, and I think it may actually be a meaningful contribution to the understanding of the economics of Bitcoin. I say that very humbly. I have no formal economic background except for some classes in school, so I may be saying something that is kind of like duh to everybody, or it's like, oh no, here's why you're totally wrong. But it may be something that people read and go like, wow, I never really thought of it that way. So I hope I hope it's going to be a meaningful contribution to the idea. I think we've been looking at the wrong things with intrinsic value, and Bitcoin as a non-physical store of value has allowed us to shift that perspective a little bit. So I'll see, when it's out soon, we'll see what you guys think, and we can talk about it.
Absolutely. Hey, Princey, I really appreciate you joining on zero notice from, we can say which country you're in, right? That's public knowledge, right? Yeah, from France.
Yes, you can. Yeah.
I saw you had a glass of something, so I got to ask you, what are you drinking today or this evening in France?
A white wine, pre-midnight white wine, just to wind down with. Nothing like your Bacardi Breezer. A raspberry Bacardi Breezer.
It is a Mexican Modelo Special.
It's not
a Bacardi Breezer.
Or yeah.
Never liked those. No? Never liked those, to be honest.
Girl drinks.
Yeah.
So on the, if I can ask a question, sorry, I'm taking over the role of interviewer for a second for Princey. On the cultural issue, one thing that's interesting about the French to me is that they are non-apologetic about defending their culture and their history in a way that I think Americans are not. And I think that can get prickly sometimes, but what's your experience with it? I've never been to France, so.
It's fun. Dave and I were just talking about this on the podcast, which I released with him today, which is woefully underperforming numbers-wise. But my interviewing skills rather than the.
I wonder why.
But, yeah. But what I see here, mate, is nationalism crack. it's crazy, really, really crazy. So yeah, like being unapologetic, as you put it, I see it as nationalistic, and what's going on, I think, is very damaging for like teenage kids down. They're having very, very little access to the internet in schools. That I mean, the schools here are just crazy, like really, really strict kind of like British Victorian kind of curriculum, and really long hours, and like a really deep focus on like rote learning, like to the extent where my 8 and 9-year-old kids, when they were at primary school, had to sit down. They call it dictée, which basically means the teacher stands at the front of the class in front of the kids, and is literally a flapping head to the. They read from a book, and all the kids to write down word for word what she is saying, the hand in the books, and then she takes a great big red pen and she circles every comma, every full stop, every accent, because the accents on the letters here, right? Everything's wrong, and then that gets passed back. So as a kid, as an 8-year-old kid, what you get back is just negative feedback every single time, because there's no way in the world you are going to get 100%. It's a word.
So it's
She's
basically
going to
just taking dictation?
Yeah, taking dictation at the age of 8. It's sickening what's going on. The level of English here is scarily bad. So they're not getting exposure to the internet, and they're not getting exposure to English language. Where does that place this country in 20 years from
now? Not in a good spot.
It's scary to see. And my oldest daughter is almost 16. Out of like her group of 15, 20 friends, 2 of them can speak English to a half decent level because they might have a mixed family. The rest of them, 0. Like they can say hello, how are you, but they say it. They're learning English the way we learned French, sort of thing. Twice a week in an hour's class. You're not gonna. This is so pointless. And to Danish on our interview that all the movies, mate, they watch all of the movies dubbed. They can watch an American blockbuster and it's just dubbed into French with random French people talking over like.
And there are laws about that too, aren't there? Like a certain amount of the content has to be. They limit the amount of English content that's broadcast and all that.
Yeah, absolutely. The radio. If you're going to play, for example, if you're going to play 5 songs in a 15-minute segment, at least 2 of those have to be French. Or stagger them. Like, some people are going to say, yeah, it protects the country, and maybe there's a certain amount of truth to that, but that's not what is going on. What's going on is nationalism, and all you've got to look at is. I mean, this is a socialist country, and look at the deep state that's going, that is and runs. They are now taking kids 3 into school. 3 years old, they get the kids, and they are under the national curriculum. And it's like people here truly believe the French educational system is the best system in the world, and they are going to leave, and they'll be the best doctors, and they'll be the best lawyers, and they'll be the best businessmen, and whatever. If you challenge that, someone on the street, they're like, okay, this is the place that's study, and we'll be fine. We'll get our jobs, and I'm like, oh my god, guys, it's nuts.
Has there been any challenge to that view of like faith in the technocracy during COVID? Has that shaken anything up at all culturally?
You know what's crazy? This time last year, about a year and a half ago, you might have seen this on the news, the gilets jaunes, the yellow jackets, the yellow vests.
I
protesting. Protesting in Paris, right? So if I go back a year and a half, maybe 20 months ago, there was like a 5 to 15 cents hike on the price of diesel or unleaded petrol, right? They go fucking bananas, right? Over a 5 price hike in fuel. They're on abouts. They're on every fork, every town, city. The Gilets jaunes are blockading motorway. They'll stop. They just absolute havoc. Then they go and riot in Paris and all the Champs-Élysées. Lots of shopping and whatever else. COVID comes along. Gone. Oh yeah, we'll go. That seems that we'll bend the knee and we'll go and still nothing. And it's just amazing that a 5 cents hike can create. But we're going to lock you down. We're going to take away your leisure time. We're going to make sure you're in. We still have to be inside by 6 p.m. here. It's absolutely, completely nuts. Kids can go to school. Kids from the age of 6 years of age up have to wear masks all on in the classrooms. And you're like, no one's questioning this. Like you went back over a 5 cent price on fuel, but no one's questioning what is going on here. People's livelihoods are devastated. We've got generations down the pan, and it just absolutely is a travesty to watch how it's just been accepted on the mass.
Your picture has been frozen for a while. Is there any way that I don't know, maybe if you like exit and come back on the same link or something, we can get a working connection with you. I don't want you.
He's not frozen on my end.
Oh, he's not? Okay, maybe it's just me.
Well, not on my end, but I don't know. Other people were saying that the audio is really bad. He had some static on my end, but it wasn't that bad. But I think maybe he's frozen for some people and not for others. So. But he definitely is pretty low resolution. Your stream's really perfectly clear. He was pretty low res.
Yeah. I bought a network cable when we started doing this, but a few months after we started doing Toxic Cabaret. It's all cost. There's no. Well, we have the benefit of being able to talk Bitcoin and help other people hopefully understand.
But you're not running commercials.
Well, we don't have any sponsors, but we do have ads on YouTube though, because then we can buy beers when we go to Miami, and maybe we can buy a mic for Pubby if he bothers investing in a laptop. Then we'll buy a mic.
I had my one sponsorship was Matt Odell told me if I did a commercial for the Lacrosse charity that he would give me, I think it was 50,000 sats at the time. So that was my one experience with running an ad for anything. But yeah, I would say it was a negative income generator in that sense, but in terms of being able to open up my world, huge positive benefits.
Absolutely. I think so. When I did my meetup, I was mostly active back like the first year, because then I got busy in my personal life. But having to convey the ideas of a Bitcoin and explain different things to other people, and I did presentations, so I had to build that train of thought, and it really helps you understand when you have to make it understandable for others. So trying to help educate people in Bitcoin really is a good education for yourself, I think.
Yeah.
So
it's the best way to learn anything really is to teach somebody.
Yeah, exactly. So I see Pubby in the chat. Pubby, you have a link on if you want to join. You probably can't join, but if you can from your ski chalet, feel free to join and meet Al's Lacrosse.
From your undisclosed location.
Undisclosed location, doing after ski somewhere in a pub somewhere, obviously in a pub. So, but what else is Yeah, go ahead.
Well, I was thinking of that self-education thing that you were talking about too, of teaching people and learning yourself. The amount of stuff that Bitcoin has brought me to, just because it gets its fingers into everything that it's led me to learn about, is just massive too. I got to say, I was not really that interested in the financial system. I had a very, very basic understanding, but until I encountered Bitcoin, because I had this sense of it just felt so illegitimate and sleazy. And having watched what happened after 2008, watching allegedly free market organizations that were totally propped up by the government. The saying, I think at the time, was like, it's privatized gains and socialized losses. It really, really was such a turnoff. And I just wasn't that interested in it. But through Bitcoin, I've become
That's a
much more
great
interested
saying.
in how that works. Yeah. And obviously, like computer science, I'm more interested in than I was before. But also, economic history. It was something that I had a tangential interest in for sure. But it's so cool to get to really drill down in that. And you have writers like Breedlove is one people love to talk about. I think Parker Lewis is a really extraordinary writer who can simplify these ideas, in ways that are really crystallize things in ways that are not showy. I think these guys, it's so fascinating to read them, and to see, in a way, how this is part of the chain of events of history. It makes sense that we're going this way, and there are
Oh,
parallels here to things that have happened before.
this is so historic. I mean, this doesn't happen once in a lifetime. It doesn't happen once in a century, anything. Last time the world saw a new money was before the Roman Empire. This is historic. It's too good to be true. And it kind of makes me think that Elon Musk is right about a simulation, because if someone bought a game, a simulation to be part of, what better simulation to be part of than watching Bitcoin take over as money of the world? Princey, I'm so happy to have you back. One of the smartest, kindest people in Bitcoin, and you're doing your once bitten podcast, and you dropped an amazing episode this morning, I heard.
Of course, Danish. Yeah,
you get yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Has anybody in the chat listened to that episode yet? This is where
certainly not me. I cringe. I really try not to. I love doing this. It's fun, but I don't want to watch myself on replay. It's terrible.
I know Labra's listened to it. He had some amusing things to say, and Pubby did, right? I know Pubby's lurking out there. He listened to it as well.
He was upset about the lack of shout outs, because he gave me like 15 shout outs when you had him on once bitten, and I don't even know if I mentioned him. But hey, you didn't ask me about Toxic Happy Hour, right? And honestly, I'm just tired of I keep tweeting about Puppy being one of my best friends and everything. I tag him. He doesn't even like it. What do you expect? You want me to keep shouting you out? There's a limit there. Love has a limit if it's not returned. So.
Where is he at the moment? You say he was at a ski chalet?
Yeah, he's on the way to skiing. I saw him in the chat saying that he was driving through the mountain passes to get to his skiing destination. And once you get the word again, Princey, we want to have a price pumping rant. I totally agree with wages to wealth here. I don't know, Al, if you were just starting something, I want you to carry on.
Oh no, you can go ahead. I think I was just talking about how because we were talking about with Princey education and also how Bitcoin brings you to other things, and it really is sort of this magnet for the journey of self-directed learning, because it touches on so many things, and so many transformations. I mean, I don't know if you can see, this is two of my bookshelves here. Like I've got a lot of books, and they, I'm a little behind in my reading, but I'm really, really interested in kind of figure out what has gone before and what does it teach us about where things are headed. And so history is a passion of mine for sure. But also, you know, like I was saying, I'm trying to learn more about finance because I really didn't know that much about it. I was turned off by the sort of the culture of the financial world and the immorality of it. While you were gone, Princey, I was saying after '08, I was really kind of disgusted by how a lot of that went. And there wasn't really an outlet for people who, I certainly didn't fall into like the Occupy Wall Street communist category. But I also wasn't, you know, it was totally unacceptable that we were just going to let these guys play gambling games with money, and when they won, they got to be billionaires, and when they lost, they got all the government's, you know, the government
bailed out.
And Bitcoin is that thing where you can address those issues without kind of going down the same old way of failed economic philosophies from 130 years ago that have killed hundreds of millions of people. But people are still so hung up on that. I think us giving them an outlet, here's a way to have a true free market, and it's not controlled by cronyism. It's controlled by mathematics and energy. It's going to have beautiful changes. It's going to have huge impacts on the world. And that's the sort of thing when you first, before you're into maximalism, and you hear these guys talking about it in almost religious reverence for certain things, it sounds crazy at first when you don't know better. And as you get further and further along, like I was saying earlier, I realized, oh, I am one of these guys. This isn't crazy. This actually makes sense. It really is that big. And it just keeps going. It's like it's a bottomless well of things to learn.
So Al, when you were at Dallas and you did your you kind of did like the Bitcoin Oscars, I think
the awards, yeah.
The awards, yeah. That was obviously, well, I don't know. You tell me. Was that because I've never been in a situation like that. You know, I started the podcast right just before lockdown. I've never been able to get to a conference. I've never been able to like hang out in real life with that many Bitcoiners. How was that experience, just being in a room filled with maxis, as I imagine, or was there a mix?
It was surreal. No, I mean, BitBlock Boom is a maximalist conference for sure. You're not going to find a mix there. It was surreal because I have to think back and pinch myself a little bit. I was a guy, you know, in 2016 or so, who had recently moved to this sort of semi-rural town in Oregon. Not a whole lot going on there. Certainly not anything in Bitcoin going on there. And I became obsessed, and I just read and read and learned. And slowly, you know, a lot of it was just happenstance. It wasn't like, I can't say I planned it out this way, but slowly I started to get to know people in the field and learn more and become a little bit more know myself. And then I went to BitBlock Boom in 2019, and that was a really great experience. This was my first conference. Until then, I had been to meetups that were, I mean, they were generally like Ethereum focused because that's just what there was in Portland. And I really felt like it was such a good community there. I really liked it. I love the accessibility. I tell people this story a lot because I think it gives you an idea of what the atmosphere is like at BitBlock Boom. I checked into the hotel, the conference hotel, and that night I was down in the lobby, and I was walking over to the lobby bar, and I see this table, and it's like, you know, Safedine is there, and I think like Bitstein, and like I forget who else was there, but these guys to me are like superstars, right? Like for the things that I cared about in the world. So it would, you know, it'd be like if you were really into movies and you walk by a table and there's like Brad Pitt sitting there and Steven Spielberg or whatever. Like I'm like starstruck, and I go and I sit at the bar, and I'm by myself, and then I'm just next to this guy, and we start talking, and I don't know what he's there for and all that. And you know, I wasn't aware of him before, but long story short, it turns out that it was Brian Lockhart, who I think he's still in the Seattle area. But you know, he's a pretty hardcore Bitcoiner, really interesting guy. I think he was one of the designers of the Xbox 360, all kinds of interesting projects. So, but he was running, there was a range event. We were going to a shooting range as one of the side events for the conference. And I started talking about that, and he's like, it turns out he's the guy who planned it too. So it was, it was kind of funny. And at some point he goes like, well, you want to go meet these guys? I'm like, I don't know. Like, I thought it would be like weird if I walked and met these guys. So he walks me over to this table, and I sat down with them, and it was just like, everybody was really cool. And nobody was playing like, well, I'm Mr. Big Time, don't talk to me. And knowing what I know now, I guess I should have expected that. That's just kind of the mentality. But at the time, I was really surprised. And I always try to mention whenever that comes up that I will forever be grateful to Brian, because he introduced me to these guys and made me feel like, oh, I can talk to these people. I can be part of this. And actually from there, so I got to know Safety a little bit from there. And then he held a steak dinner one night after, I think it was after the conference was over. This is 2019. And I was talking to him about how I had taken an amateur butchering class up in Oregon. There's a group called Portland Meat Collective that does, for people who are just interested in learning, who want to do it at their home. And I was saying, like, what if next year, like, we could put something like that on? That'd be really cool, because all these guys are into meat and eating steak and all that. That'd be something that'd be cool to do. So we kept in touch a little bit about it. And then in January, right before COVID hit, he said, hey, I'm going to do, it was actually, I don't want to dox it too much, but it was a party for Bitstein. And he said, I want to have this thing. What about your idea? Can we get that together? So I started putting it together. I have some experience from my previous career of organizing events around food and wine and all that. And a guy helped me from a place called Augustus Ranch in outside of Austin. I got in touch, his name's Kent Shoberly, but I got in touch with him, and he was just instrumental in getting this together. And he knew a lot of good people to get in touch with. He's a representative for this ranch, also as a butcher. The way he became a butcher, this fit in, total coincidence. I did not know this when I contacted this guy asking for his help. He was an animator in Silicon Valley. He worked for Pixar, and he took a butchering course to learn musculature better to be a Pixar animator. It was as an artist, he took this course, and he just fell in love with it. And he's actually put on butchering classes at Mark Zuckerberg's house when Zuckerberg went through his phase of I only eat what I kill, that kind of thing. So this was like the perfect guy to do this with. And just having met these guys in Bit Block Boom over the summer, I then ended up doing this event. I got to meet a bunch of those guys there. I ended up, I think it was that night, because I was looking into moving into the Austin area at the time. I ended up, Pierre Richard had just moved back from New York there in his new house, and it was in the neighborhood that I was looking at. So I was like, oh, come over and, and see my house. So, like, I ended up that night just kind of like kicked back on the couch having a drink with Pierre Richard. I'm like, this is so weird. Like, this is so crazy. But that's just like, everybody's really cool. Nobody tries to be like Mr. Big Time, even though to us, these guys are superstars. Like, they're like these legendary guys, but they were all really welcoming. And then, it was, I'd only had the Al account for a little bit at that point, so most people didn't really know it. But then Gary Leland contacted me, the organizer of Bit Block Boom, and said, do you want to do something for the closing event? I'm like, yeah, I'll do it. So I ended up just doing this stupid thing, and it was a lot of fun. I have a little bit of experience with public speaking, so I just kind of went with it, and it was cool. It was a blast. I was glad to be able to do it. So I think I sometimes can address a crowd better than I can address people one-on-one. So it's sort of the introverted superpower. And I've been doing that like most of my life. It's been easy for me to address crowds. So yeah, it was a lot of fun.
I remember watching it.
Everybody was smashed too.
They put it on YouTube, didn't they? That last award ceremony. And I think he called up Hoddle won an award. Hoddle, but he was in the bar chugging beers or something.
Yeah, he and I are friendly, and I found out later he actually did not know. He was so drunk he did not know what he was being called up for, because he was so hammered and distracted. But he played it off well. I mean, he's really good spontaneously. He's one of those guys you can just off the top of his head, he can just be really entertaining and whatever. But yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was great. And I got to be with the people who kind of formed the core group of Dirtbag Friday. most of them were there, or a lot of them were there. And this conference that I had gone to as a stranger the year before, all of a sudden felt like a family reunion of all of my buddies, which was crazy. It was really such a weird transformation, but it's the kind of thing that, like, stuff like that gives you a lot of hope for the world. It was really cool. It was really meaningful, even though it was a silly thing. It had meaning for me. So it was great. And we'll do it again this year too.
You head to Miami?
I'll be there. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah. So I'll be there for the whole thing, maybe 2 days before. I think I might want to get there a little bit early just to get settled in, because I've never been to Miami before. I'd like to check it out. But I'm gonna be in a house with American Hodl, Vake, Bitcoin Person, Bobo Dread, who is I don't want to give his real name. Sometimes he goes by his real name, sometimes by his handle. But yeah, it's gonna be really fun. It's gonna be cool.
Did you find that on Airbnb, or because I was just thinking hotel myself?
Yeah, I think Vake and American Hodl found it, and they decided that it was like, it's perfect. It's got the pool in the backyard and everything, so it's gonna be cool.
I think I saw him post that.
We'll try to behave ourselves.
I think we need. I have the domain name Airbnb Bitcoin, so I think that's what we need to head to. That's what we need. Just like sick pads all over the world for Bitcoiners.
That would be cool. I had this fantasy in my head of the English gentleman's club system, which means a very different thing in America. Gentleman's club than it does in England, I think. But their system is interesting to me. I kind of like reading about that historically. I thought it would be cool to have something like that for Bitcoiners at some point, where like you could go to major cities around the world and there'd be, you want to call it like Satoshi House or something like that, and you go there and there's rooms you can stay. There's a great reading room. There's a restaurant. That would be such a cool thing to have, where you just Bitcoiners could congregate and have this. But I don't know. It's kind of out there, but.
We need our own airline as well, man. Bitcoin Air.
Yeah. Well, we just need our own private planes.
Yeah.
Pubby started that with his non-public jets. I like to tease him with. Yeah, we need Air Puppy. Bitcoin Air. A great target for criminals, though. Bitcoiners. That's why you gotta. That's why you got to make sure not to have access to any significant funds whatsoever, more than you can carry in your wallet wherever you are, really. Yeah. In my opinion. You got to be careful.
Don't do dumb things with your keys, for sure.
Yeah. But Princey, let's get some moon juice going. I remember you. We're lucky to have had you on Toxic Happy Hour several times. I remember back last year when we were talking about our expectations for the bull run. You were talking about we should never underestimate the fact that some of these people, the institutional money coming in now, they had a need to rebalance their portfolios, because they may be allowed to have a 10% allocation to Bitcoin. Then that blows up in value, and all of a sudden it's 80%, and they got to rebalance. How do you see the bull run play out if we allow ourselves a little bit moon juice here?
This has been the most bullish week for news, I think, in ages, and it just seems to me that not that many people are really talking about it. I put a thread out today about the NY dig, hat tip Matt Odell. I won't say NYDIG. Oh shit, I said NYDIG. That it's that's huge news, guys. That's massive.
Tell me what it. Explain. Right. Let's hear it.
So, 2 days ago, NYDIG announced his appointment of New York Life Chairman and CEO Ted Mathis to its board of directors. And so I picked through the article. It wasn't that long to go through, and just picked out a few of the best paragraphs. Mr. Mathis is chairman and CEO of New York Life Insurance Company, the nation's largest mutual life insurer, with more than $700 billion in assets under management. Right, so he's CEO of that company. that one company, New York Life Insurance, right? Mr.
Full-time job.
Yep.
Full-time job right there.
Right, there you go. Mr. Mathers' experience will be particularly helpful as NYDIG focuses on the expansion of its growing investor solutions business, enabling institutional investors simple, secure, and efficient access to Bitcoin. So Mathers is coming across to sit on the board of NYDIG, and his role will be to help other companies, such as New York Life Insurance Company, understand how to securely and effectively get access to Bitcoin. Now, what's interesting to me even further is Mathers also currently serves as chairman of the American Council of Life Insurers. The ACLI, the American Council of Life Insurers, this is life insurance, right, in the US, represents 280 member companies. He's chairman of the ACLI, represents 280 member companies, which collectively represent more than 95% of the life insurance industry in the US, more than $7 trillion in assets. That blows my mind that this isn't getting more airtime. And then if you think about it, another layer into this is like, well, what business is this? This is insurance, life insurance. What do insurance companies do? Well, insurance companies are experts at probability and risk assessment. If those guys are going to be using NYDIG and Ted Mathis as the bridge into Bitcoin, then that takes risk off completely. This is a risk-off asset if insurance companies are moving into it, because they don't do risky shit. That's not their business, right? They're all about bonds and just grinding out some kind of yearly, annualized, compounded growth. So if they're going to go into Bitcoin, this is massive. Then it goes on to say, this is a quote from Ross Stevens, I know that Ted shares our aspirational vision for the kind of positive impact on society that NYDIG can have in the decades to come. And we all know Ross is heavily down the Bitcoin rabbit hole. We all saw the interview with Michael Saylor. Then one of the closing paragraphs, which I called the cherry on the mooncake, is a quote from Ted himself saying, focus, be humble, be kind, anti-fragile. These aren't just the words on the coffee mugs that Ross and the team use. They are the values that define who they are and how they operate. Values that I deeply share. He's pilled, man. Like this guy, Ted Mathis, is pilled.
This guy who's responsible for 7 trillion, you said?
7 trillion on the as the chairman of the ACLI. 7 trillion, right? 700 billion of his own company. His own company. 700 billion. Then
so when this is, as you're hinting here, a clear sign that there is some of those. That the guy with this much responsibility and influence on the rest of the industry of pension funds is ready to buy Bitcoin. When do you think we'll see something like that happen? Which month during this year? When? For sure 2021, right?
Yeah, I think I think Christmas is going to be nuts. If we don't get announcements in November, we're certainly going to get them in February, March. It's fucking moon time.
Yeah. You didn't say next year, did you? You didn't say February, March next year, did you?
I said by Christmas this year, I think it's going to go crazy. If not, definitely by just the first quarter of next year, as all of these companies start making their announcements. I think it's just going to be an incredible. It leaves me kind of speechless, to be honest. And that wasn't just the news this week, right? We had the JP Morgan news talking about, creating a fund of Bitcoin companies that have Bitcoin on their balance sheet so that their retail investors can get exposure to Bitcoin. That's massive. That's retail. That's high net worth individuals all the way down to retail. That was also kind of swept under the rug. I think people have, we're getting drawn into these freaking arguments about NFTs and all of this bullshit. And today, Sailor buys another $15 million, another two Bitcoin. And we're not even like, that doesn't even pique our interest anymore. Imagine that 18 months ago.
Yeah. No, like that would have been a huge news. I just want to add to that what you're saying, Princey, with the timeline. And I keep telling people, look how much happened the last 12 months. Okay, we were at 3,800 1 year ago, and Bitcoin was. It was only that the few of us that were on Bitcoin Twitter. 12 months later, it's mainstream. MicroStrategy, Tesla, so many, a Norwegian oil giant.
Another one, yes. Yep, that was this week as well.
So, like, when you look back and see how much has happened in Bitcoin land the last 12 months, look forward 12 months, and I don't think we can imagine how far this can go. And the 750,000 that Al threw out earlier is totally on the table. I mean,
I would like to just defend myself. I threw that out a year ago. So yeah, I was just revisiting that prediction. I threw that out a year. I do think that may be bearish at this point.
Yeah. For the cycle or for the year?
Let's say for the year plus a few months. I'm going to hedge my bets.
Okay, that's fair. So, Princey, the chat is calling for you back on the stand. Now you're saying that these things could happen. What do you think that would do to price? Like, what are we looking at?
Oh man, now you want numbers? Holy crap!
Just so we can call you a bear.
Yes. By the way, how did your I've not watched it yet, but you did tell me the other day that you were doing a presentation for your case for Bitcoin hitting 20 million. What was what's your timeline on 20 mil?
Yeah, so 20 million, I'm very conservatively because I don't like to put out like targets where I'm serious. I don't like to.
Bear.
No, seriously. Look, this is. You bear. Actually, since you asked me, after I just answer your question, I would like to explain my my new thinking, which is actually upping that target. So I felt a need to do a presentation that I've kind of been like doing already 3 years ago, and I keep iterating when new information comes in, and I just think it's really, really logic and rational to say that Bitcoin will hit $20 million this decade. It could happen before the next halving, but honestly, things take longer time. Word of mouth is one thing. It takes time. Understanding from one individual that is orange pill to the next also take time. We still have a long way to go. I mean, the people active on Bitcoin Twitter, we almost know each other, right? It's that small. So, but I'm saying this decade because I don't think that the dollar or any other fiat currency will survive the kind of dilution, money printing, quantitative easing on steroids that they're doing right now. So 20 million is a logical target because 5 million would represent today's fiat currency around the world, and the next 15 million would represent store of value part of real estate and stocks that you very easily can. But I did that presentation, so I kind of, first explain what money is. And because I think it's a shortcut that a lot of people take, they jump what money is and understanding money. And honestly, it's probably the hardest thing about understanding Bitcoin is like truly first like dive into money and understand what that is. Because once you have that in place, it becomes very logic that yes, Bitcoin is money. Yes, it's the best money the world has ever seen. Yes, it will take over as medium of exchange. Yes, it will take over as store of value. And yes, that's why it will be 20 million. So I do that presentation to kind of make it easy for people to see the thinking behind reaching $20 million per Bitcoin. And also, I feel it's like it's a video that if they want to orange pill someone, it has that ability, that video. So it's on the channel here from last week, I think. So what I wanted to say now in terms of why that might be too bearish, that $20 million is, so one thing I've been thinking a lot about lately is, so Bitcoin is going to be deflationary, which means, as we all know, it increases in value because we only have as much Bitcoin as we have, and production capacity in society, technology develops, capacity increases, so we get better at producing things. So as we all know, deflation, and hint, of course, Jeff Booth, the price of tomorrow, means that we can buy more and more for our Bitcoin. And when that is the case, and I think people will like be hoarding their Bitcoin and not want to use their Bitcoin. And when they don't want to use it and they're so reluctant to spend it, so much will just be like, off the table, even that what little is left that we're actually willing to use, it will increase in value, and people will be willing to sell their goods and services for even less sats, because that's the only, like, there is no, like, the sats are not there to be spent because people don't want to spend it. So yes, Bitcoin and sats, in my opinion, will be money, but because we're so reluctant to spend our money because it goes up in value, that $20 million might in practice work out to have a more buying power than that, like be it 40 or 50 million. But I'm just sharing my thoughts. Al, what do you think about that? And Princey, I'd love to hear your opinion as well.
Yeah, well, I think you guys have the stronger financial background than me, for sure. It's interesting. I mean, I do think it sounds like what you're describing is a little bit of a feedback loop where as price increases, it will stimulate people to hold on to their Bitcoin, which will further stimulate price, et cetera, et cetera. And 20 million would be amazing. It's hard for me to get past that, think of like, God, how the world would change. And how it would change for us too, and all the things that we could do with that. Yeah, I think you're right that there's going to be a tipping point where just no one, even regular people, are not letting go of anything. And like we were saying earlier, whatever the number is now, that like 150% of mined coins are being sold every day. So between Grayscale and Cash App and PayPal and whoever else, they are sucking up all of the supply and then some. And there's got to be a point where that well runs dry, and they're really going to have to kind of grovel for more now. And price is just going to go crazy on that. And then your institutional side of it too.
Princey, the chat demands it, and anyway, it is your turn to speak. So what do you think of my sort of train of thought there in the 20 million, and maybe it'll be worth even more because nobody want to spend it?
Yeah, it would make sense as well if they keep devaluing the currency, right? As long as they keep printing dollars into the system, then Bitcoin price is going to go up in dollar terms anyway. It's like, as a loaf of bread would, in the Weimar Republic, all of a sudden you needed a wheelbarrow load of currency just overspilling just to go and buy a loaf of bread. If that loaf of bread was Bitcoin, in Bitcoin terms, against the US dollar, a currency that just keeps getting printed and printed and printed, your purchasing power maybe you can't even put a number on it if this keeps happening. It's just, that's another completely different rabbit hole. So I see where your train of thought is going.
But it's too bullish for you to grasp, is what you're saying. I'm kidding.
Yeah, it is. It is.
I'm kidding.
It is. I can't. I mean, I know you want me to put a number on something, but by the 100K party is coming a lot quicker than anyone thought. Like, let's put it that way. And then everybody likes to look at Plan B's S2F. And I got a question for you guys about that. When we talk about like breaking to the upside, it's like what does it actually take to break the model? Are we talking about breaking to the upside? Or are we just talking about breaking the 288? if we get to 290, have we broken the model to the upside? No, that's not breaking the model, right?
That's not breaking the model.
We're not going to know if we've broken the model for the next 2 or 3 years, I suppose, because we need to know where we revert back to. And then that brings us back to what you talked about, Anders, the rebalancing issue. This is a big one to think about, and I still can't, because a lot of these institutions that are taking Bitcoin positions on now, if that gets too big, I mean, Saylor doesn't give a fuck, clearly. I mean, he's all in. But he's a unique case. This is a unique case. There are not many individuals or companies out there that can do what he has done as quickly as he did. Even the companies now that are taking this onto the balance sheet, brilliant, you know, it's great, it's a bull case for Bitcoin. Probably a lot of them are, I mean, we've already seen it, right? Rougher in the UK, they rebalanced. They took out their initial, whatever they put in cash, it doubled, and they took out their investment. Why did they do that? Are they hoping to buy more when it dips, or is that going into different assets? I don't know. And I've got a sneaky feeling that when this rebalancing does come around, because it will have to, some companies will have to do it. Saylor's going to be there on the bid for all of it. For all of it. So that keeps the price floor up here. And it's you know, I'm bullish. I just can't. I can't put a number on it. I just can't put a number on it. It's just crazy. It's easy by Christmas over 250 grand.
Yeah, that's fairly bearish, but no, that's gonna happen. I would say, you know, but yeah, we're just guessing here. Nobody knows. You know, we don't know when. We don't know when Apple realizes that $200 billion is just melting away. That's going to change everything. So yeah, but I kind of expect 300,000 by Q3, and let's see what happens. It's fun to talk about, but again, it's what I'm saying. Like, if you look back 12 months, everything has changed. Look how much happened in 12 months. So I'm just trying to open my mind and say, if that much can happen, and we had no idea we'd be at 58,000 12 months later, you know, we dipped to 3,800, then, you know, a lot of things can happen in 12 months from now. So, I mean, so I think we can just agree it's going to be really, really interesting and entertaining.
100%, man. 100%.
Yeah.
It's going to be crazy. Yeah. And it takes sustained buying pressure, right? Sorry, Al, go ahead.
No, I was just saying, I'm thinking of how we all were acting when we moved from, you know, 18 to 20 to 25 and 30. Like, oh my God. I mean, there's going to be $30,000 swings daily. I mean, that's going to be, even those of us who kind of expect it on paper, it's still going to be mind-blowing.
It will.
It will take, you know, sustained buying pressure. You know, companies will come in and they'll announce, and you know, they'll make a big purchase, and they'll spike the price for a day or two, but then we'll go back to normal, and it's only the DCAs that are trying to keep that price flow going up. You know, a lot of money has to flow into Bitcoin daily for these things just to keep going and going and going and going. So, you know, earnings seasons are going to come around. They're going to spike the price, and then it's going to be sideways for a little while, and then there'll be another, you know, there might be a geopolitical event which sends it one way or the other. It's coming though. We all know it. We all know there's a wall of money coming into Bitcoin globally. Yeah, like, we're only focused on US, right? This is happening around. I mean, like Al said earlier, the Norwegian company. That guy, you read his shareholder letter. That guy is so pilled. It's just, it's a joy to read. It's as if he's been reading Bitcoin Twitter for the last year. You know, he's saying all the stuff we say. And it was, and this is a Norwegian guy, like, name another country that, you know, where these billionaires are and thinking along these terms. And this is what, you know, we're all here, we're talking about price, but, you know, we all know we want world change, we want societal change. This is truly what it's all about. And we need people like this Norwegian guy that sees it to be in this position of power, like Sailor as well. Like, you know, Sailor's rant on education when he was on my podcast was just mind-blowing. This is world-changing stuff. This changes the societal structure for the better for everyone. It's really, really very, very humbling to watch this all play out.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost too good to be true, but it happens to be true, and I'm just so grateful that we get to be here and be part of the Bitcoin revolution, because it all starts with money, and once we change the money here, the world is going to be changed in all aspects. It's going to be such a much better place, I feel. How about you, Al?
As far as how it affects me mentally.
Oh yeah. Let's take that.
Yeah. I think probably the thing I like about the Bitcoin community altogether is that we joke about Lambos, but this is not a bunch of people who are, you know, almost no one I've ever met in this community is geared towards, oh, price is going to moon, and then I'm going to be in the club buying bottles of Cristal, and I'll get 2 Lambos. I'm going to drive one into a pool, and da-da-da. Like, that's not the mindset. You know, the mindset, like Princey said, is like, it's changing the world. It's education's a big one for me, for sure. Partly because of my own experience, and partly because I have a son who will be of school age in a couple of years. You know, talk about changing that, and how what's been going on in the world has put such a spotlight. We were talking earlier. I'm gonna have to hop off this headset in a minute. I think my battery's dying, but
right.
But Bitcoiners, hear me or no?
We can still hear you.
Hold on, I'm
we got you. We can hear you.
The headset.
Yeah, let's tell Al that we can't hear him, and then he'll just rant a lot of stuff that he shouldn't have said.
Now
we can hear you. We can hear you. Yeah.
Now I can hear you. All right. Yeah, my battery died on my headset. So, you know, we want to use this wealth, and let's be honest, the power that it's going to give us to remake a fairer world that's not controlled by this small group of favorites. Education's, like I was saying, is a big one. Finance, obviously, is a huge one. Maybe real estate, when you start to decommodify, or to turn, you know, take away real estate as a store value, that might make life easier for people. You know, the way that we interact through corporations, and a fair system of taxation and all that, like stuff like this, it just never stops. As opposed to just, how am I going to use this for stupid hedonistic pleasures? And I'm going to take vacations, right? I'm going to rent a sailboat in the Caribbean, right? I'll probably get massages once in a while. You know, I'll have a good dinner. Like, you know, I'm not saying I'm going to live like Gandhi or something like that, but it's more important to me that we use this position that we're in to right a lot of wrongs. And I hope we remember that. And I'm pointing to myself when I say that too. I hope we remember that when we're there, that this is what we talked about doing when we got there. Because you know, we're all going to die someday, and that's what's going to matter. You know, it's not going to matter that we threw some kick-ass parties and all that. Like, that's going to be fun. But what's going to matter is how we got this once in a civilization chance to really remake the world, and that we did something good with it. Because every time somebody else has had that power, they used it to game the system for them and their friends, and didn't care what it did to the rest of the world. So I hope that we can be the ones to break that cycle.
Yeah, I think because Bitcoin exactly is like decentralized, and no one has control over the money and can print more money for themselves, the system is already set up for success in that area. Unfortunately, we got an echo coming from you now, Al's Lacrosse, because of the no headset. But we've also been going for a long time. But Princey, look, as the chat is saying, every time you talk, the price pumps. So we need to give. Well, we had 57,400 now. We need to give you the mic to you, Princey, because we want to reach that 58,300 and get the all-time high.
Yeah. Don't worry, the all-time high will come in the next 12 hours. But I'm going to have to sign out, guys. It's like 20 to 1 in the morning here. So I'm going to say sayonara, and thanks for reaching out, Anders, and asking me to come on and hang out with you guys. And great to see everybody in the chat. Thank you, everyone, for those that listen to the show.
Great to be able to talk to you. We'll be in touch soon.
Yeah, definitely, man. I'll DM you and get you on the show. And Anders, thank you for coming on, brother. Really appreciate it.
Oh yeah, and no, Daniel, thanks a lot for coming on. It's always a pleasure. I think you are our most like you're the guest who've been on Toxic Happy Hour the most time. You're a friend of you're a friend of the house. You're one of our friends, so it's awesome to have you as a good friend and Bitcoiner come on and talk moon juice and other good things like making the world a better place. So really, thank you for coming on. Everybody, Daniel Prince is on Twitter. He's doing the podcast called Once Bitten, where today especially he dropped an absolute fire episode. But Once Bitten.
Yeah, you got to catch it up. It's a good one. Yeah, right, you guys have a great weekend.
Yeah, I heard that guy was pretty cool who he had on.
I don't think so. Princey, thank you very much. And
cheers, guys.
See you on the next one, man. Have a good weekend. Say hi to the family.
Thank you. See you.
All right. See ya. Bye.
See ya.
All right, Al's Lacrosse. I expect to see you later tonight. There's a couple of hours until you're doing Dirtbag Fridays. So I need to get a rest before that.
I'm going to be going to dinner in a few, getting some steak with the family. I will probably be a little bit late for it, but I will be there, and I'm sure so will all the rest of the Dirtbag family.
And you're saying
except for
that
Katie, who is community, not family.
Yeah. No, it's a lot of family, and then there's a community member as well, which is Katie the Russian.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, she's great. We love Katie. Thank you very much for coming on extremely short notice.
Oh, thanks for having me.
And it was nice to meet you on Adam's panel. Everybody check out Adam Meister's YouTube channel. He's been a great voice of Bitcoin only for many, many years in this space. Strong hand, BTC is the next BTC, or Bitcoin is the next Bitcoin, etc. So, but Al's Lacrosse, is there any shout outs, any shills you want to do, anything you want to highlight before we log out?
Really quickly repeat for anybody in Texas, especially the Houston area, check meetup.com for we're going to do a meetup on the 25th. Everybody's welcome. I think at least one guy from Unchained is going to be there. Possibly a couple of guys from Austin will be there. Answer any of your questions. It's for new and old alike. And obviously check out my Twitter feed for any upcoming articles or events or anything like that. I'm going to be try to be writing some more. Princey inspired me. I was deeply moved. I couldn't believe he remembered everything that I said there. That was important to me. So it really it's going to make me rethink some things. So, but thank you for having me. It's really awesome. What a great community that we do have here. And I look forward to what you guys got coming up too.
Yeah, I'm really glad to meet you today earlier, and really appreciate you coming on here and sharing your story and teaching so many others so many important things about Bitcoin and what's going on. So thanks for that. And on that, I'll do the outro, which really is just a warning for people not to store more value in dirty fiat currency than they can afford to lose, because it's a built-in public policy to dilute the value of your fiat currency. And by fiat currency, obviously, I mean dollar, euro, whatever country you're in, whatever currency you're used to, forced to use. Careful to store more than you need for the next, because it loses value. It's your choice. It's not financial advice, but just be aware that fiat currency is totally created to steal the value of your savings. Therefore, Bitcoin is an alternative that is worth considering. Thank you, everyone, for participating in our hilarious chat. Thanks for watching. Thank you again to Al's Lacrosse and Princey. See you on the next one, hopefully next weekend, and I'll see you on Dirtbag Fridays this evening.
Yes. Have fun. Thanks. See ya.
All right. Thanks. Bye.